You ever hear something that slices straight through your sleep like a blade? That night, it was a creak. Soft, slow, rhythmic. Then a moan, high-pitched, breathy, definitely female. I opened my eyes, blurry with sleep, the red glow of 3:04 a.m. glaring from the alarm clock on my nightstand. I knew that sound. I just didn't expect to hear it in my house, when I wasn't the one causing it. At first, I froze. You know how you lie there in disbelief, hoping your brain's playing tricks on you? But the bed springs creaked again, and the moan this time was louder. Sharper. Like it was meant to be heard. I swung my legs off the bed, my bare feet hitting the cold hardwood floor. My heart thumped in my chest, not out of fear, but something deeper. Something ancient. Betrayal has a sound, and I heard it that night. The door to the guest room was cracked open. The hallway was dim, lit only by the faint moonlight bleeding through the window by the stairs. I walked slowly, my breath held tight in my lungs. I didn't want to believe what I was hearing. Maybe she was watching something on her phone, I told myself. Maybe she couldn't sleep. But the moment I reached the door and nudged it open, that lie died a fast death. There she was, my wife, Emily, on her hands and knees, facing the headboard. Naked. Her long brown hair was tangled, her back arched. And behind her, moving with greedy, animal rhythm, was a man I'd never seen before. He had tattoos down his arms, the kind you get when you think you're too cool for a shirt. I didn't recognize him, but he sure seemed to know his way around her body. My body went numb. I just stood there, watching. Listening. The worst part? She sounded happier than she ever did with me. She saw me first. Her eyes widened, and for a second, she stopped. Froze. Like she wasn't sure if I was real. Then she gasped and covered her chest with a blanket. Oh my God, Jake. Her lover turned around, startled, his expression flickering between defiance and fear. I didn't shout. Didn't punch anyone. Didn't cry. I just stepped into the room, looked at both of them, and something snapped in my brain. Quietly. Like a light switch flipping off. You love attention, don't you? I said. Emily opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. You want to be desired so badly? Fine. Let's all enjoy each other. Her lover scoffed. Man, what are you talking about? I'm saying if you're already this deep, why stop now? I said, pulling off my t-shirt and stepping forward. Let's make it a night to remember. I don't know why I said it. Maybe I wanted to humiliate her. Maybe I wanted to erase the image of them together by diving headfirst into the fire. Maybe I was just broken. They didn't say no. It was messy, awkward. No one enjoyed it, not really. The tension hung in the air like smoke. Emily barely looked at me. The man, I never even asked his name, seemed uncomfortable the whole time. But I did it. I joined them. I wanted to see what rock bottom felt like. Turns out, it's cold. Empty. And dark. When it was over, I went back to our room without a word. Laid in bed with my hands behind my head, staring at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just planned. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The ceiling fan spun slowly above me, slicing the silence into soft, rhythmic hums. My chest was hollow, like someone had carved out my ribs and filled the space with static. I stared into the dark, thinking about how her moans still echoed in my head, how she'd only looked at me once during that twisted night. At 6:10 a.m., the morning light crept in through the curtains. I heard her showering down the hall, humming something off-key. Just like that. Like nothing had happened. That's when I knew something had changed in me. It wasn't rage exactly. Rage is loud, messy, explosive. What I felt was quieter. Heavier. A slow pull under the skin. I got up, got dressed in work jeans and a flannel. I stepped outside and walked the perimeter of the property, as I'd done 100 times over the years. But this time, I stopped at the fence, the old cedar posts where the land dips toward the woods. This fence had history. I built it with my dad before he died. He always said every man needs a boundary, something to mark what's his. I never really understood it until now. As I leaned on the post, I imagined them here. Just the two of them. Maybe under the stars, whispering behind my back. Maybe laughing. That's what ate at me the most, not just the betrayal, but the possibility they laughed at me afterward. She came out around 8. Coffee in hand. Still wearing the same silk robe she always wore on Saturday mornings. The one I used to slide my hands beneath. "Jake," she said carefully, like she was trying out my name for the first time. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. She sat on the porch steps like nothing was different. Like we were a normal married couple again. "About last night." I turned and looked her in the eye. "Did you enjoy it?" She blinked, taken off guard. What do you mean?" "The threesome. Was it everything you hoped for?" "Jake, please," she said, eyes dropping. "I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. I felt lonely. I felt like we were drifting. And you thought bringing another man into our bed would fix it? I didn't bring him in. He came over. I didn't expect you to." "To what? Walk in? Or join in?" She didn't answer. Just stared into her coffee like the steam would hide her. "I think it's time he left," I said. She looked up fast. "What? Your boyfriend? He's still here, right? In the guest room?" She didn't say anything, which was answer enough. I walked back into the house. Sure enough, the guest room door was shut. I opened it without knocking. He was half-dressed, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. "You've overstayed your welcome," I said. He looked up. "Yeah. Thought that might happen." "Good," I replied. "Then you know where the door is." He stood, zipped his jeans, and grabbed his boots. "You're a weird dude, man." "So I've been told." He passed me in the hall without another word. Emily stayed on the porch while he walked to his car. She didn't say goodbye. I stood at the door and watched them. Watched how neither one of them looked sad. Or guilty. Just tired. I think that's when I decided. Right there on the front porch. Something inside me clicked. A switch. Not the kind that turns off. The kind that turns something on. Later that night, when the moon was full and the world had gone quiet, I sat on the porch steps. Just like she had. Only this time, I had a shovel across my lap. I looked out toward the fence line. The ground there was soft. And no one ever walked that far past the trees. I didn't tell her I was digging a grave. I told her I was building a compost pit. She didn't ask questions, just nodded and returned to whatever she was doing inside, laundry maybe, or one of her endless texts. I could hear her laughter through the open window. Not the kind she used to give me. This one was new. Soft and secretive. Like it belonged to someone else. The shovel cut through the earth easier than I expected. It was late spring, and the soil was still moist from last week's rain. I worked in slow circles, making the hole wider than I needed to. I didn't want to think about why. I just did it. The work felt good. Honest. Funny how digging feels like praying sometimes. Just you and the dirt and the quiet. No one to lie to. I spent most of that weekend out there. Told her I was trying to reconnect with the land. That phrase made her roll her eyes, which was fine by me. Let her think I'd gone crunchy. Let her think I was healing. She didn't notice the way I measured the distance between the fence and the tree line. Didn't notice me testing how deep the hole was with a broken broomstick. She didn't notice anything at all. On Sunday night, I sat with her on the couch, just like old times. She curled up next to me, her head on my shoulder like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't watched her sleep with another man 48 hours ago. Like I hadn't joined in. Like we were still whole. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head up to look at me. "Never better." She smiled. That same soft, clueless smile she used to give me when we were dating. When she'd lie about how many men came before me. When I was still dumb enough to believe she was mine. Later, I waited until she fell asleep. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and just watched her. The curve of her shoulder under the sheet. Her bare leg hanging out like she didn't have a care in the world. You ever love someone so much it starts to rot? I walked outside, past the porch, into the trees. The wind stirred the leaves, but there were no animals tonight. Not even birds. Like the whole world was holding its breath. The hole was ready. I stood over it and stared down. It looked different now. Less like a pit and more like a mouth. A hungry thing, waiting. That's when I heard it, gravel crunching up the drive. I stepped behind the tree, careful not to move too fast. The headlights turned off. A door opened. Then closed. It was him. The lover. Back again. I watched him walk up the path like he belonged here. Like he owned the place. He didn't knock. He just slipped around the side of the house, the same way a fox slips into a henhouse. I didn't stop him. Not yet. I waited 10 minutes. Counted them slow. Then I walked back up toward the porch, past the open guest room window, and heard it again, that creaking. The bed. Her moans. They didn't even wait a week. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't feel rage. I just felt ready. I waited until they finished. It didn't take long, 5 minutes, maybe 6. A man who shows up in the dead of night like a stray dog isn't there for poetry. He was there for something fast and filthy. And from the sound of it, that's exactly what she gave him. When I heard the mattress go still and her whisper fade into tired giggles, I got up from the chair where I'd been sitting in the dark, staring at the cold coffee in my mug. I didn't bring the shovel this time. Just a flashlight. And the knife. It was my father's, carbon steel, black handle worn smooth with time. He'd used it for hunting deer back when there were still bucks worth tracking in these parts. I hadn't held it in years. Tonight, it felt like an extension of my hand. I walked slowly down the hallway, the knife hidden inside my flannel jacket. No rush. No panic. Just breath. Just focus. The guest room door was open a crack. Moonlight spilled across the floor. I pushed the door gently. It didn't creak. There they were. He was on his back, arm across her bare stomach, both of them glowing in the pale light like something out of a cheap motel painting. Her eyes were closed. His weren't. He saw me before he moved. But he didn't get the chance to say a word. "Get up," I said quietly. He blinked, like he wasn't sure if this was a dream. I pointed to the door. "Both of you. Put something on. I want to show you something." "Jake," she said, sitting up slowly, voice trembling. "What are you?" "Just come outside." She must have seen something in my face then, something quiet and unmovable. She wrapped herself in a robe. He pulled on his jeans and boots, still shirtless, chest heaving. I led them out the back door. No one said a word. The night air was cool, and the trees rustled like they were whispering secrets to one another. Down past the porch. Through the grass. To the fence line. The ground was still slightly damp where I'd dug. I stopped beside the pit and turned around to face them. The moonlight caught the edges of my knife. I didn't try to hide it anymore. "What the hell is this?" he asked. Emily clutched her robe tighter. "Jake, please." "You had your fun," I said, my voice flat. "Twice, actually. Once without me. Once with. Now I get to do something for myself." "Don't be stupid, man," the lover said, stepping forward. The knife moved faster than I expected. A single slice, deep and low, across his belly. He stumbled back, hands clutching the wound. I kicked his legs out from under him, and he fell hard, breath shooting from his lungs. Emily screamed. I turned to her. She tried to run. I grabbed her by the arm and pulled her close. She fought me, cried, clawed at my chest, but I didn't feel it. My body had gone numb. I drove the knife into her side, under the ribs, and held her until her legs buckled. Her final words were my name, whispered like a question. "Jake." They lay together in the grass, near the fence, not touching but close. Like broken statues left in the wrong museum. I took my time rolling them into the hole. Covered them with dirt until the ground looked like nothing had ever happened. When I finished, I stood there, breathing hard, sweat dripping down my face. It was done. I walked back to the house. Stripped off my bloody shirt. Washed my hands in the sink. I made eggs. Watched the sunrise. And for the first time in years, I smiled. They say the silence after death is different. Thicker somehow. They're right. The morning after I buried them, I sat alone at the kitchen table with 2 eggs, over easy, and a slice of dry toast. The coffee pot hissed like it was trying to fill the quiet, but nothing really could. The house felt bigger. Roomier. Like it had been emptied of something sour. I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I just chewed. Out the window, the fence line looked ordinary. The grass would grow back soon. Give it a week and there'd be no sign of what I'd done. Not unless someone came looking. And no one would. That was the beauty of it. Emily didn't have many friends. Not real ones. Just co-workers she occasionally bitched about over wine and empty salads. Her parents were dead. Mine had been gone for years. No kids. No neighbors close enough to see anything in the dark. And him? The lover? Nobody knew he was here. He had no car. No phone left behind. I'd tossed it in the creek that ran through the back of the property before sunrise. One smooth skip and it was gone. I'd taken care of everything. By noon, I cleaned the guest room. Stripped the sheets. Bleached the mattress. Tossed the pillows and duvet in a trash bag and burned it out back in the fire pit. The smoke curled into the sky like a ribbon of memory, thin, gray, and already fading. I told anyone who asked that Emily had gone to stay with a friend in Asheville. Needed time to think. They nodded politely. Small-town people know better than to pry. The folks at the hardware store didn't care. The lady at the diner asked once, and I shrugged. Sometimes people just drift, I said. She didn't ask again. After a few days, I started walking the property more. Every morning, like clockwork, I circled the fields. Checked the fence posts. Looked for signs of anything unusual. But it was always peaceful. Almost too peaceful. One morning I paused at the grave, though I don't think of it as a grave. It's more like a correction. A course reset. I lit a cigarette there, something I hadn't done in years. Took a drag, coughed a little, and stared at the patch of dirt that had flattened since the last rain. "You're where you belong," I muttered. The wind rustled through the trees in agreement. Sometimes at night, I'd hear things. Creaks in the hallway. A moan in the dark. Not real, probably. Just memory leaking into the walls. But I didn't mind. Let the ghosts come. They weren't any louder than the lies I'd been living with. I started sleeping in the guest room after a while. The bedroom still smelled like her. Still had little things, hair ties, her perfume bottle, a half-read novel with a receipt for lipstick shoved inside. I never threw them away. I wanted to remember. Not out of love. But as a reminder of what people are capable of when they think you're not watching. A month passed. Then another. The grass over the grave grew back. Thicker than before, oddly enough. Like the earth was proud of what it had swallowed. And I found peace. Not joy. Not happiness. But peace. The kind that comes when you know you've done what needed doing. No one was going to hurt me again. No one was going to laugh behind my back, or use my bed like a playground. I was alone now. But I was free. And I liked being a widower. I hadn't touched her jewelry box since the day she disappeared. It sat on the dresser like a mausoleum for forgotten things, half-tangled necklaces, cheap gold hoops, a broken watch, and at the center, her wedding ring. She never wore it around the house toward the end. Said it made her skin itch. That morning, I don't know what made me open it. Maybe boredom. Maybe curiosity. Or maybe just the ache of silence that had started to hum beneath everything I did. The ring was gone. I froze. I stared into the box, rubbed the inside felt with my thumb, thinking maybe it had just shifted under one of the earrings, but no. It wasn't there. I checked the bathroom. The side table. Even the junk drawer in the kitchen where she used to dump things absent-mindedly. Nothing. The ring had vanished. My heart started to pound in a slow, strange way. I walked outside to the fence line. The grave was still intact, untouched. Grass thick and green. I didn't dig it up, I wasn't that crazy. Not yet. But I knelt beside it, stared at the ground like it could confess. Had I missed something? I remembered clearly, she wasn't wearing it that night. I'd looked. I'd even thought about it as I stood over her, the knife in my hand. She'd stopped wearing it weeks ago. So where was it? By noon, I was pacing. By evening, I'd started locking the doors again. Not because I was afraid of anyone coming in. But because I was starting to think someone had already been here. That night, I poured a double shot of bourbon and sat on the porch with the lights off, just watching the tree line. The moon was high. The stars were clear. And the woods were too quiet. Not still, just holding something back. Then I saw it. A flicker of silver, just at the edge of the grass. Something small. Round. I stood slowly, walked to it. It was the ring. Resting right on top of the dirt above the grave. No footprints. No drag marks. No signs of animals. Just the ring. Clean. Polished. Waiting. I picked it up with shaking fingers and stared at it in the moonlight. Inside the band, the engraving I'd chosen still gleamed like new. Forever means forever. I didn't sleep that night. In fact, I didn't go back inside. I stayed on the porch with the shotgun in my lap and the ring in my pocket. Staring into the woods. Listening for the creak of the bed. Listening for moans that shouldn't exist. Because here's the thing. I buried them. I know I did. But now. I wasn't so sure they'd stayed buried. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I tell? The ring stayed in my pocket for days. I'd feel it shift when I sat down. Cold. Heavy. Almost like it had a pulse. I kept thinking I should throw it in the creek like I did with his phone. But I didn't. Instead, I checked the grave again. I went out just after dawn with my gloves and shovel, my hands shaking harder than they ever had the night I buried them. I dug slowly, layer by layer, half expecting to hit air. Or an empty pit. But I didn't. I hit cloth. Then flesh. They were still there. Still curled like I left them, decomposing in their slow, quiet way. And yet, the ring. That damned ring. I buried them again, faster this time. Covered them up like I was stuffing a lie back under my tongue. That night, I slept on the couch. Too tired to stay up, too afraid to dream. But the dreams came anyway. I saw Emily standing at the edge of the woods, her hair moving in a breeze I couldn't feel. Her face was turned away from me, but I recognized the robe. The one she wore the last night of her life. White, thin, barely hiding the dark bloodstain that spread across her side like a blooming flower. She didn't speak. Just raised her hand. And pointed to the house. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. I told myself it was just a nightmare. That's all it was. But then I heard it. Creak. 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 The bed. The guest room bed. The one I'd cleaned. Bleached. Stripped bare. The same one where they'd sinned together. I stood in the hallway, frozen. It creaked again. Slow. Rhythmic. Familiar. I opened the door fast, flipped on the light. No one. Just the bed. Perfectly made. Still. But then I saw it. In the center of the mattress, a long, dark hair. Too long to be mine. Too fresh to be forgotten. I backed out of the room and shut the door. Locked it. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Just sat in the kitchen, the shotgun across my lap and the ring pressed into my palm. In the morning, I called a contractor. Told him I wanted the guest room gutted. New floor. New paint. Hell, tear down the damn walls. He said he'd come by the following week. That was fine. I could make it one more week. Or so I thought. Because 2 nights later, it wasn't the bed that woke me. It was her voice. From down the hallway, whispered like wind through a screen. Jake. Jake. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. That voice, soft, cracked, exactly how it used to sound when she called me from the bedroom in the early morning before things went rotten, crawled through the hallway like smoke under a door. I sat up straight in the kitchen chair, eyes locked on the dark hallway, heart punching slow and deep. The shotgun leaned against the wall by the fridge. My fingers twitched toward it but didn't move. What good was a weapon against something that might not be flesh? Jake, the voice said again. Closer this time. I stood. Slowly. My legs didn't feel like mine. The ring in my pocket burned hot, as if her finger still wore it. I pulled it out and set it on the table. Say something else, I whispered, not knowing why. Silence. And then, knock knock, from beneath the floorboards. The kitchen. Right under me. 2 hard, hollow raps. I staggered back, bumping the chair. It tipped, fell, clattered against the tile. Another knock. Slower this time. Like someone wanted me to know they weren't in a hurry. I dropped to my knees, palms on the floor. It was cold. Still. And then, knock, again. Right beneath my hands. I scrambled to the drawer, yanked it open, found the flashlight. Turned it on and dropped to the floor, crawling to the vent near the baseboard. Nothing. Just ductwork and dust. But the knocking was real. It had weight to it. Not a rat. Not wind. Something with a purpose. I grabbed the crowbar from the mudroom and pulled the floor panel loose by the pantry. It groaned. split. Underneath was dirt. Foundation bricks. Old joists. The remains of a shovel from when I'd first dug the pit weeks ago. And nothing. No bodies. No bags. Just empty space. I sat back on my heels. Heart hammering. Mouth dry. Had I imagined burying them? No. I had seen the bodies again. I had touched them. But now, gone. A sound came from behind me. The chair in the kitchen scraped back across the floor, on its own. Then the ring spun once on the table and clinked to a stop. It was upright. Balanced perfectly on its edge. Like someone had just flicked it. I stared at it for a long time. Then I said aloud, more to the silence than to any ghost, "What do you want?" No answer. Just the wind against the window. And the bed creaking upstairs. Again. By the time the sun rose again, I hadn't slept. I sat in the kitchen, shotgun across my lap, the ring resting like a curse on the table. I watched it, the way a man might watch a ticking bomb, daring it to move again. It didn't. Not after that last spin. I'd decided something in the long, slow crawl of dawn. I needed to see the bodies one last time. Not for guilt. Not even for proof. But because if they weren't there, I didn't know what I'd become. I went out just before 7, dew soaking my boots, shovel in hand. The fence line was still. The air too quiet. When I reached the grave, I stood for a long time. The grass had grown in thicker than ever, almost unnaturally lush. It pulsed green like a wound that refused to scar. Then I started digging. Faster than before. My hands blistered. My back screamed. But I kept going. 6 feet down. Nothing. I dropped the shovel. Climbed into the pit. Ran my hands through the dirt. No cloth. No skin. No bones. Just cold, clean earth. Like it had never been disturbed. Like I'd never been here at all. I screamed. Loud. Animal. Raw. I don't remember climbing out. I remember the porch light flicking on, though. And the front door creaking open. Footsteps. Slow ones. From inside the house. I turned toward it, breath steaming in the cold morning light. A figure stepped onto the porch. A man. Tall. Shirtless. Blood dried on his chest, black around the edges. And beside him, Emily. Wearing the same white robe. Soaked in red. Her head tilted like she couldn't believe I was still standing. She smiled. Soft. Crooked. Her voice came like wine through a grave. "We saved a spot for you." I turned and ran. Not back toward the house. Not toward the road. Into the woods. The shotgun was gone, I'd dropped it by the grave. My legs ached, my lungs burned. Branches clawed at my arms, slapped my face. But I ran anyway. Behind me, footsteps followed. 2 sets. Calm. Unhurried. I don't remember falling. But I woke up in a hollow in the earth. Deep. Wet. Freshly dug. Above me, the sky was gray. 2 silhouettes stood at the edge, staring down. Emily held the ring between her fingers. She dropped it. It hit my chest with a dull thunk, then rolled into the dirt beside me. And they started to shovel. The sound of soil hitting my body was dull, final. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just whispered. Forever means forever.